Well, happy Sunday, everybody. Okay, let me just get over there. Okay, it is the first Sunday in November, and so we've had time change. Now, just let me change my camera view. There we go. Now we can talk for a minute before we get busy being busy. So, what is the date today? November 7th. November 7th. So we're only a few days away in Canada from Remembrance Day, where we remember all of our veterans that fought, and many gave their lives in many, many wars. It's interesting that so many people think of World War II coming up to Remembrance Day, but we have so many people in our country and in other countries that fight for what they believe, fight for their country, fight for their loved ones. So, this week, while we're not there yet, let's remember that. So, in Canada, there are going to be 2 Remembrance Days celebrated this year that I'm aware of. Now, that doesn't mean it didn't happen before. It means I wasn't aware of it before. So, November 8th is Indigenous Remembrance Day, remembering all of the Indigenous people that fought alongside their brothers of whatever nationality. So, this is the week for remembering, for being grateful for what we have. And what we have today is some meatballs that are healthy. They are keto. They are sugar-free, fat-free, grain-free, all of the things that most meatballs are not. And so we're going to have some fun doing this. And while we're doing it, I'm going to show you I have a fresh hot cup of coffee with my butter rum sugar-free syrup in it. And it is delicious. Okay, so let's get busy because we have lots to do today. So I am just going to get us back to where we need to be. Whoops. There we go. I don't know why that does that. I bet you guys have noticed that too. And that little blink glitch on and off, that is not a social media thing. That is a Sharon thing. Okay, so now what we have going on here, I'm just going to set this one aside. What we have going on here is 2 teaspoons of dried dill. And the fact that it's dried is very important. Now you can use fresh dill. If you use fresh dill, you can add it to the 2 tablespoons of dill pickle juice that is also in here. Now I've put the dried dill and the dill pickle juice in here to sit for about an hour. You can do it longer, you can do it shorter. But the reason this is important is because we want to rehydrate this dill. We want to get the dill flavor into our meatballs. That is going to be very important as we go forward. Okay, so now that we've had our dill sitting in here for a little while, we are going to add 1 pound of ground pork. Now, you can use ground pork, you can use ground beef, you can use a beef and pork mix. There we go. Whatever works for you. Whatever works for your family. If you are a family that does not eat pork, use beef. It will be delicious one way or the other. Now, the one thing that we do not have ready yet, and we will do that in a little bit, is our onion. Now, I want you to mark Wednesday on your calendar because 2 things are happening on Wednesday. We are going to visit a keto volcano. You have to join me on Wednesday to find out what I'm talking about. And we're going to make gummy bears. They are delicious. They are easy. They are wonderful to munch on when you're on keto. So you want to be here on Wednesday. Bring your friends, bring your family. Have a watch party again afterwards if you don't feel like writing the recipe down the first time. It's going to be fun. So you don't want to miss that. Okay, now we have our dill pickle juice. We have our dried dill. 2 teaspoons of dried dill. If you're using fresh dill, use 2 tablespoons. So it's a third of whatever. So there's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon. That means 2 tablespoons is 2 teaspoons. Okay, so we have that in there. We are going to add 2 tablespoons of chopped dill pickle. So these are very, very dilly, I'm telling you. And you won't be sorry. Okay, now, itchy eye. To that, we are going to add about half a teaspoon of fresh cracked black pepper and 1 teaspoon of TSL Organics Greek seasoning. The pepper was TSL Organics too, just in case you were wondering. Okay, now we have all of this in here. We're going to add a little bit of salt. You know, seasoning with salt is one of the most important things. So that's maybe half a teaspoon, a little less. You can season while you're frying them as well. But getting that salt in there brings out the flavor of everything. Absolutely everything. And we are also going to add, totally brain went blank, 35 grams of ground pork rinds. So get out your grinder, and I ground them before you got here because I figured I'd be nice to you this time and not make you listen to my food processor or my blender or whatever else I decided to make noise with. Now, you guys know I don't like touching raw meat. If you're doing this at home for your family and you want to do it barehanded, by all means, knock yourself out. I don't want to. I don't like the feeling of raw meat on my hands. Now, while we're doing this, I'm going to put about a tablespoon-ish of bacon fat. If we're using pork, let's use pork all the way. And we're going to start this pan heating because we definitely... Okay, come on. There we go. We definitely want this pan nice and hot so that these meatballs get seared on the outside. You want that caramelization on the outside. Okay, if you're joining me for the first time, whether it's live or you're watching the replay, doesn't matter. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking about today. Let me know where you live. Let me know, are you doing keto, not doing keto? Okay, now the one more thing that we need in here is an egg. And then, before we get too far into it, I almost forgot, we need to chop up some onion. Not a lot. You don't want to be putting a lot of white onion into anything much that you're cooking because, cutting board here, white onion definitely has more carbs in it, and you have to take those carbs into account when you are making your meatballs. Okay, so you guys remember how to cut an onion? I've showed you this like a million times, but I just think it is so cool. You want to leave the root end on your onion. Just trim it so that it doesn't make a mess. And then just slice the onion towards the root. Being careful not to cut yourself. Sharpen your knife before you start. Then give it a slice this way. This just gets those two end pieces that aren't going to chop up. Now, we don't need a lot of onion in here. So this is about a 1/4 cup, and that is lots. We don't need more. So we're going to put the rest in the container. I have a project I'm going to be using that on later. So we're going to add this 1/4 cup of onions into our meatballs. Now, if you fry it first and caramelize that onion, you're definitely going to have a little bit of a different flavor. It's good either way. And if the onion isn't cooked all the way through, that isn't a big deal either. Raw onion is delicious. Okay, now, should have had this in a bigger bowl because I'm definitely making a mess here. Okay. Now this has to be thoroughly mixed together before we put it in the pan because we need all of those flavors to be one unit. Okay, so we've got our dill and our dill pickle juice and our onion and our Greek seasoning and our salt and pepper and our ground pork. This is already smelling delicious. And I'm glad I've got this cutting board on here to clean up my mess for me. I'll be able to throw it all back in the bowl. Now, you don't want these very big, and I'll tell you why. You can make them as big as you want. You want to do a meatloaf? By all means, you can definitely do a dill pickle meatloaf. But the smaller you make them, the faster they're going to cook. That's one thing. But also, you're going to have more caramelized bits on here. And that just gives you more deliciousness. These meatballs are going to be wonderful anyway. But the more surface area that hits that hot pan. Okay, this is. The more we're going to have that intense caramelized flavor. Now, we've got that in there. And we're going to turn our frying pan up to 4. Now, remember this is a magnetic induction burner. So, 4 on here is like just below medium. And you want to wait until, and it's just starting now, you want to wait until that bacon fat is just starting to smoke. And then we're going to make meatballs that are about an inch around. And we are going to pop them in there as soon as we've got them going. Now, what are you going to serve with your dill pickle meatballs? You can have a salad. You can have steamed cauliflower, broccoli, asparagus. What do you want to have with it? So these are wonderful, wonderful with pretty much anything you want to serve. Pardon me. Okay. If your meatballs get a little bit big, just watch them and make sure that they have a little bit more time to cook, so that they're cooked all the way through. And just take one of the biggest meatballs that you put in the pan and use that as a tester. There we go. Try and keep all of them in the pan reasonably the same size. Some are a little bigger, some are a little smaller. Now, if you take the entire bowl of meatball pork that we've got going on here, and you weigh that, and then you divide it equally into meatballs, you will be able to calculate exactly how many carbs you have in a meatball. But because most of what we're doing here is pork and pork rinds and bacon fat, and there isn't a lot of anything else, so these are going to be really low carb. So if you just want to sit down with half a dozen of these and save the rest of your space for dessert, you can do that too. Now, once we get a pan full of these going, we're going to make some sauce to dip these in. And it's going to be some intense dill flavor too. You're going to love it. Okay, now, these, you don't want to walk away from the stove. If your stove is right beside your workspace on your counter, then that's great. If it isn't, stay here and babysit, because you don't want to burn these. Now, the egg that we put in here is not for flavor, it's a binder, the same as the pork rinds are. And the nice thing about pork rinds and eggs as a binder is there's no carbs. So if we were to use breadcrumbs from keto bread, even though it's keto, it's going to add carbs. So when we use the pork rinds, we don't have to worry so much about carbs. Okay, now we're almost done. We're going to get this whole thing in the pan. And if I had been paying a little more attention, I would know exactly where everything started and stopped, but I kind of have things a little bit mixed up here, but that's all right. Okay, we're maybe not going to get everything in there. Now, you can make all of your meatballs before you start heating your pan. That way, you're going to get them all in the pan at the same time. And you're not going to have to worry about this. I was not quite that on top of it today. So did all of you remember that daylight savings time ends today? So we go back to standard time today. And I woke up this morning and I didn't remember, so I'm grateful to Dill for calling me saying, did you know that you just had an extra hour's sleep? Which I didn't, but I'm very grateful for. Apparently I needed it. So, and all of the clocks, almost all of the clocks, only one exception in our house, change automatically. Now, we are going to get this out of the way because we don't want raw pork on anything else that we're doing. Okay, so set this right here, and we can get rid of the raw meat gloves. And those go straight in the trash. Okay, now let's grab our meatball flipper, otherwise known as tongs, and we're just going to give these a quick flip. Now look at how caramelized that is. That is beautiful. And they all need to look like that on all sides if you can make it happen. Oh, that one I just put in there. Okay. Now they will release when they are caramelized enough. That one's not releasing yet. That one is. Now you have to get to know your meat. When it sticks to the pan, it's not going to stick forever. If you let it do what it's supposed to do, when it's ready, it will release. Now you don't need a non-stick pan when you're cooking eggs or you're cooking meat. A lot of people say, well, I use non-stick because my meat sticks to the pan. It's supposed to stick. If you've got the right amount of fat in your pan, you don't have to worry about it. That one is still stuck. That one is just lifted. And so it tells you, it works with you to let you know when things are ready to be flipped. Yeah, that one is. Okay, so we've got these flipped. We'll have a few more ready to flip in a few minutes. So we're just going to leave these here cooking. And we're going to get this out of the way. Now we are going to make a dilly dip. If you want to add some raw onion to this, you definitely can, but you don't need to. Adding raw onion to it is just going to increase your carb count. It's going to taste delicious, but it's definitely going to increase your carb count. Okay, so first we need a long spoon. Now my jar of mayonnaise is almost empty. It is time for me to make some more. Now in this dip, we're going to have about half a cup of mayonnaise and an equal amount of sour cream. Now if you wanted to do this and turn it into a salad dressing, you can do that too. Okay, that jar is definitely empty and needs to be refilled. So I know what I have on my list of things to do later this afternoon. Do you make your mayonnaise at home? It's wonderful to have homemade mayonnaise because you can adjust the flavor, you can adjust the saltiness, you can adjust the tanginess. Okay, so half a cup of mayonnaise. We're going to do half a cup of sour cream. Now, we haven't talked about sour cream for a while, but we're going to today. You want to make sure that you are not buying low-fat sour cream. Now, this is Gailey sour cream. I can find this quite easily where I live. And if you look on the label, it's 18% milk fat. And that's important because it's giving us good, healthy fat. But the other thing that's important is that there is no cornstarch in this. And I'm telling you guys, watch for cornstarch in a lot of the things that you buy that you wouldn't expect to see it in. That's one of the things that I'm very proud of with PSL Organics, is that there are no fillers of any kind. So, people that are doing keto, paleo, people that are type 2 diabetic, they can all enjoy. Definitely making a mess, but that's all right. Okay, that's how come we have this, right? Clean off the handle of my spoon. Now, the mayonnaise, equal parts mayonnaise and sour cream. And that is the base of pretty much any dip that you're going to make. We have 2 more teaspoons of dill and another 2 tablespoons of dill pickle juice that we're going to add in here. And they have been rehydrating for a little while as well. Now, if you are serving this for a social event, make it the day before if you can. Get that all mixed in there. And then we are going to add 2 tablespoons of chopped dill pickle. And that definitely, now that's about 50 grams of chopped dill pickle. And dill pickles, being made of, or created from cucumber, don't have a lot of carbs. A little bit, but not a lot. So, pardon me. Now we're going to flip some of these again. Oh, look at that. As soon as they are caramelized and ready to flip, they just let you know because they pick right up off the bottom of the pan. That one as well. Okay. Some of these are ready to flip again. Some not so much. That one is. Now these may not actually look quite like balls when they're done, but they're going to look even less like balls when we are done eating them. Okay, so now we have those caramelized bits. If you want to keep working and keep caramelizing all the sides, you definitely can do that. If you don't want to, now that one I picked up a little bit early. If you don't want to, you can put a lid on them now, and in 5 to 8 minutes, they will be cooked through. All right, we're just going to leave those keep going, and we are going to keep working on our dill dip. Now, as strange as this sounds, we are going to add 1 teaspoon, if I can find a teaspoon, of powdered erythritol. The contrast between the sweet and the tangy is really lovely. If I can get a whole teaspoon here. So you don't need very much. So you've got the salty from the pickles, you've got the tangy from the pickles, and the vinegar. Okay. And there's that. And we're just going to get this mixed up. And I promise you, the longer this sits, the better it tastes. It lets all of those components get to know each other. Now let's just take a wee little taste test. Somewhere, there they are. That is lovely, and it's going to be lovely. It's a nice, light, creamy, doughy flavor already, and that's just going to keep getting more intense the longer it sits. So putting this in a container in the fridge and keeping it until the next day, or make it in the morning if you're going to serve it at night. And look at what is happening to our meatballs. They are absolutely beautiful. Now, we don't have time today, sadly, to do all of these. So we are going to take one of the littlest meatballs. That sounds like something that you could make a kid's story out of. Okay, now we're going to make sure that this little guy is cooked all the way through, and we are going to do a taste test. So have you figured out what it is you're doing for Sunday dinner yet? Because if you haven't, maybe now you have. It is not too late to go and get pork out of the freezer. Now look, we break this open and it is perfectly cooked inside. It's perfectly caramelized outside. Now we're going to add just a wee bit of this sauce on top. It doesn't take a lot. You don't want to be drowning things in sauce. Well, some things you do. If it's something like hollandaise sauce, I don't even need the food. Just give me a bowl of hollandaise sauce. That is nice and light and dill pickly and porky and all of those wonderful things all together. So this is something that you can make quickly and easily for your family tonight for supper, and I hope that you will, because there we go. Now this is a nice, easy way to make Sunday dinner. And you can get the majority of the prep done on Sunday morning while you're having your coffee. So go ahead and make your meatballs and invite anyone that you know to come and watch this. Send them a link. Send them however you can get it to them. People who need keto often don't even know that they need keto, or they don't know it's a thing, or they don't understand what it is. They think it's all about buying weird supplements, and it is not. It absolutely is not. So tell your friends, tell your family, be proud of the journey that you're on every step of the way, even if the step is a little bit backwards for a minute. It's still a step, and it's still an opportunity to learn. Thank you for being here, whether it's live or after the fact. I enjoy doing this for you every day, and I hope that you are going to do your very best to live your best version of this shining life until we get together at 10 o'clock Mountain on Wednesday morning. Have a great weekend, what's left of the rest of it. And don't forget, Wednesday morning, Volcano, Gummy Bears. You don't want to miss it. We'll talk to you on